Hello, everyone. There you are, interrupting my morning peppermint tea. Good morning and welcome everyone to, this is episode 16, I believe, of Mortgage News Live, coming to you from lush London. Thank you for joining us, and thanks as always to our sponsors, MPowered. We have another topical show this morning where we'll be talking about the upcoming general election that I'm sure we're all, really excited about. In the news, we have seen this morning that the ONS revealed that unemployment edged up to 4.4%, and that annual growth in regular earnings was 6%, same as for the previous 3-month period. Annual growth in employees' average total earnings was 5.9%. So, whilst unemployment is up, pointing at tricky times ahead, wage growth inflation, however, is still proving sticky. It is all gearing up for a big Wednesday next week on June the 19th. Answer that phone. Hello. It's all gearing up for a big Wednesday next
Wasn't
week
me.
on June the 19th. It was you, Gary. I had you down as a troublemaker. As the next CPI print will tell us a lot more. But a cut before the summer seems unlikely, especially as the bank will want to continue to be seen as independent before an election. Or will it? I can't work with these amateurs. It's just unbelievable.
Well, I've been here 3 times now.
I know. You should know better. Swap rates have reduced, and now they've gone back up again, perhaps in part because of wage growth, but also because of the uncertainty engulfing Europe, where the rise of far-right groups cast an ominous shadow and have led to President Macron in France doing a Rishi and calling a snap election. The manifestos from the 2 main parties are not officially out yet, but housing is expected to feature, and as always, there's been a good deal of leakage already, which we will discuss, well, now. So enough of my meandering metaphors, and over to this week's wicked panel. Joining us are Rhys Schofield, founder of Peak Mortgages and Protection. Hello, Rhys.
Hello.
Rachel Geddes, the MD of Global Mortgage Management. Hello, Rachel.
Good morning.
And I was going to introduce Gary quite nicely, but I'm not sure I'm going to bother now. After
You normally say legend
that.
or something, which is very strange.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome Gary Bush, the MD of MortgageShop.com.
Good morning.
Welcome. Have you put your phones on silent now?
Don't.
Was it? What's going on? Why?
It's just
Why
technology,
so?
mate. I'm not very good with technology. I'm really not.
You're meant to be a technology guru. You've got
Oh,
more
dear.
lines of code than
What
Google,
chance have
haven't
we
you?
got then?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, let's first look at the news today. Unemployment is up, wage inflation is still sticky. Are you guys expecting anything seismic from next week's inflation figures, or is it more of the same? And how are your clients feeling about everything? Let's go with Rachel first, as it's your first time on this show.
Thank you so much, I think. So clients are definitely concerned. This conversation is being had quite a lot at the moment. What's going on? Obviously, we've had previous figures come through of inflation staying stable, going down, Bank of England not changing, but there's so many things that have to be taken into consideration, and rates have been going up. So with the pending election, clients are talking more about the concerns. That is something they are worried about. Obviously, the unemployment figures, don't think anyone's massively surprised by them, realistically, from what we've been hearing over the last 6-8 months. But clients are just more concerned. That is what we're hearing day in, day out. What's going to happen to the housing market? What's happening with rates?
Rhys?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. You've kind of got at the back of your mind what's lurking round the corner as well, which made Rishi Sunak call what seems like a bit of a suicidal election when he's called it. Do they know something that's coming down the line that we don't? So that's sort of playing there. And then the whole other thing is unemployment is edged up, but then you've got massive shortages in sectors. You know, we've still got a huge shortage of brickies, tradespeople, things like that. And, you know, what are we doing maybe about addressing that shortfall, especially with some of the stuff we might talk about later. So something's going on, and it's probably not all it seems.
Yeah, well, that directly goes into the whole immigration debate, and the one thing that no party is brave enough to talk about, apart from the Lib Dems, who've put it in their manifesto, and that's Brexit. So it's interesting. Gary, what about you?
Yeah, I read things from a different way. I saw wage growth this morning, and I feel better, not sad. So we've had 25 years of wages being dumbed down and hardly moving. So when I read wage inflation, my heart skips a beat. But I'm supposed to, as a financial guy, I'm supposed to be really sad, and that it's going to affect inflation.
It's a weird thing.
I want people to earn more money.
Yeah, of course.
We see the same applicants coming back, and you say, "Oh, you're not earning much more than you were 15 years ago, are you?" I don't, I can't be sad about wage inflation. Obviously, unemployment is one of those numbers. They now call it in percentage terms rather than millions because they want to hide what the real number is. So that's meaningless. It actually means nothing unless you're tracking that monthly. It's ridiculous. A percentage term. Tell me how many million. That's what I can understand that. But tell me percentages, including all the drill down numbers. It doesn't mean anything. But I'm quite happy today that wage inflation's there. But I'm gathered the Bank of England's going to be upset with that. So, oh dear.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting balancing act for them again, won't it? And does anyone realistically think there'll be a change this month?
Well, we pray for one.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have one. I think realistically, if we talked about this probably 6 weeks ago, we were expecting it to be over the summer, September time. But now, to most people in the industry, we're looking Q4.
And I think we've obviously got something seismic about to happen. There's probably going to be a change in government, and it might be a bit foolish to pull a trigger early when let's see what happens, how the markets react, and all that sort of stuff, which is well above my pay grade. But I don't think that timeline seems to change. We're talking about over the summer, but then maybe later on in the summer anyway. And let's not forget that a lot of what the Bank of England does is dictated by what on earth is going on in the rest of the world. And who knows what's going on in America later on in the year. France has just called a snap election. All these things, if anything, are as important as what's going on in the UK.
Yeah. I think the problem is everywhere we look, there's contradictions, aren't there? You got unemployment rising, but wage growth rising. And then if you look abroad, you've got the European Central Bank's cut rates, which is yay, but actually America has just had really, really hot employment figures. So it looks like they won't cut rates as quickly as they might have. So again, that's contradictory. So it's really hard to look anywhere and go, oh, well, they're doing this. This is the way that the world is going, because there's so many contradictory things. I agree.
Look at what's going on. Yeah, look at what's gone on with the pound against the euro. Since the weekend. Well, a snap election in France has done, that filters through. That will do something to what's going on in the UK with inflation. I'm on here to be controversial. I'm talking about real stuff. Anyway,
Is that why we invited you to be controversial?
I think so. Anyway.
No, right. I thought that was Gary's job.
I thought it was me. That's my ticket. Sorry. I should go. Really.
Well, hopefully this will be interesting then for people. Just a reminder, we do have comments section here. So if you do have any questions or comments, bung them in the chat if you're listening, and we'll try and get to as many as possible. So election, we've had the first of the leaders' debates, which was hardly awe-inspiring and a little shouty. And I think that seems to be the Conservatives' way of dealing with everything. It's just shout over everyone else as much as possible and to make some claims that may or may not be spurious or downright lies. And then that will stick. It's a very sort of Trumpian approach. But is there anything you've heard from either side that's inspired you yet? Gary?
Oh, thanks. Oh, jeez.
Is that you typing as well?
No, that's the hard worker next to me. Your typing's being noted. Anything I like? I like people being brave. So Lib Dems coming out and actually mentioning the Brexit word, whichever side of the fence you're on, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Is good. I think we should all have open discussions about things that we fear the most. To answer Reese's query earlier on as to why Rishi went early, Rishi went early because he knew that reform wasn't ready. And that's why we ended up seeing Farage, because reform wasn't ready. They went too early as far as reform was concerned. So they had a sit down, obviously, and decided that bring the big gun in. So they talked
But
him
that
into
was always going to happen, surely.
I don't know.
Farage,
It was. I think he was trying to do a deal with the
disagree.
Tories. I think he was trying to go for a deal with the Tories. I really do.
He still will. He'll still will. I mean, he'll hope. I think he'll hope that reform will be the opposition, basically, and they'll end up merging with the Conservatives, and he'll be the leader. I think that's what he's playing for, definitely. But I can't believe he didn't plan to suddenly join as the head honcho at some time. Especially now, because first of all, he was going to campaign in America, wasn't he, for Trump? And now Trump is a convicted felon. He probably doesn't want to be seen as doing that.
He'd fit in with reform, right? So
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I think the other reason he went early was I agree with that, by the way, Gary. I think reform was a big thing. The other thing was they're going to have a long, hot summer of small boats arriving, which they're not going to stop. So the figures are going to be even worse.
Yeah.
And also, if you look at the projections on inflation, it will come down, but there could well be a bounce in sort of Q3, Q4. So actually, so he probably doesn't think that interest rates will have come down enough earlier either. So the longer it goes on, the harder and harder it is for him to say the plan is working.
Is there a plan?
Look, I'm trying to be apolitical here, but no, I don't think so. Of course not. The Conservatives' only plan is to get back into power.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It is. I think the Conservatives' current game plan is to get out of power, because they couldn't do anything else other than get out of power with what they're doing. I mean, we saw it, him going across to Europe last week. A clear thing, a major milestone like 80th. To anyone who has, forefathers who did have to get involved with that skirmish, for him to do that and not be in the international delegacy was just stupid, absolutely stupid. And they pay people hundreds of thousands of pounds to advise them.
Correct.
To do that.
He's advising these people.
It is interesting. What stupid thing can we do today?
Exactly.
And it's laughable. And the as someone who's definitely not a Conservative voter, it is quite funny to watch. But the danger they've got now is people are laughing at them sometimes, and that's
every day
really difficult. Once people think you're a bit of a joke, because say what you would want about the Tories, they were always, they were stable, they looked after business, all that sort of thing, and I don't think they've got that even to fall back on now. And it's basic stuff. It's like in the pretty unedifying debates when Rishi Sunak was trying to claim that NHS waiting lists were coming down, and his maths were not mathing. To take the term, and the audience.
That's a massive point for Starmer there.
Yeah.
I just don't remember. Sorry, Rachel, go on.
Go on, Ray.
I think it's really interesting with the election, though. Some of the surveys that have been coming out, how many people are actually going to go and vote, because the confidence has been knocked across everybody. One, what we're hearing, we've heard before, and nothing's changed. And two, we're going into an election that has been very rushed, policies being thrown together, but there's no money to back them. So when they're saying they're going to spend this on the NHS, on this on education, on this on the housing, everyone's going, well, no one's going to pull this off. And we're going in to an election where we've just come out of recession. They have no money in the pot to actually action anything.
Yeah.
So I feel that the public, it is quite interesting when you hear what they're talking about, how much is actually true and doable, how many people are actually going to vote up to do anything? That's going to be what could throw things out, and potentially be what the Conservatives are banking on, is actually there's going to be less people turn up to vote.
Yeah, I agree, which is why they're playing to their grassroots.
Well, they're not, because what he did last week lost all the grassroots.
Well, that was a massive.
There's
error,
a lot of hate. There's a lot of hate over that.
And
so there should be. So there should be. I mean, the problem is, Tories have always used the great claim that Labour will come in and spend all the money and waste all the money. Well, look at the last 14 years. You couldn't spend any more money if you tried.
Yeah.
The last 14 years
taxes even
have been invested on nothing. Like, what can we see? We see £500 million go to Rwanda, and no one's actually got to Rwanda yet. But the money's actually there in Rwanda. I mean, who pays money in advance?
I saw a really good stat on Rwanda, where someone had broken down the numbers and worked out that it would actually be cheaper to send everyone they're sending to Rwanda on a Disney cruise for a year instead, and they'd have a huge saving in it as well. So you're talking about it's just
up for that.
It's bananas. And I tell you what, that's a heck of a lot more humane and nice. Although you probably would have had enough of Disney after a year. But it's just the wastefulness of some of these things is absolutely ridiculous. How is that in any way reasonable or logical as a way to spend money aside?
Because we have people who've never had a job, who are career politicians, who are loaded, and they've never had to worry about direct debits coming out on the wrong day in a month. And that's why the House of Commons really should be ashamed of itself. It's not the House of Commons, is it? It's the House of Rich Boys. So, other than revolt, which I'm not going to suggest on this broadcast, I mean, this is such a mess. It really is a mess.
Yeah, and that's... so I listened to an interview with Angela Rayner this morning on the way into work, and I admit I'm a champagne socialist. Yeah, I'll put that out there. I am thoroughly impressed with her. Really, really impressed. The way she talks, her down to earthness, and I think that is a type we need a more balance. So people from different backgrounds in Westminster, without a doubt. And she is a very, very interesting character. Like her or not, she came across really, really well to me, just from a down-to-earth, understanding approach.
Actually, Rachel, what do you think of the ladies at the front bench of Labour? Because I'm impressed by them. What do you think as a lady?
I still on the fence a little bit. So I think they are pioneering in what we're doing. So to have women at the front edge of it, it's new, and I'm fully supportive of that. You have got a mixture, though. You've got your angels that come across very, very down to earth and an everyday person. But when you start looking at some of their backgrounds, it's still not the House of Commons. The diversity still isn't there. And that's the problem with all of this. And don't get me wrong, I'm always going to beat the drum about more women pioneering and leading. It's going back to, though, how many people in Parliament are living an everyday life and having to deal with the day-to-day struggles of us, our clients, and everybody else, and actually feeling the impact of their decisions. Because when they make certain decisions, how much are they impacted versus the rest of us?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a good point here from Neil. Just on it's the last time I'm going to mention Farage. He said that common consensus that Conservatives will lose the election, and Nigel Farage, with him now throwing his hat in the ring, do you think Reform can take enough votes off the big two and we eventually have hung Parliament? And what impact do you see this having? Any thoughts on that? Do you think Reform will do enough to? No,
I think so. I think that they, as much as Farage is a good orator and he can make a point compellingly, and he is good at public speaking and things like that, I think that the problem is you look at their candidates and some of the people who some of the stuff that those guys have said, and they're still didn't they have a guy who was praising Hitler the other day and saying Britain would have been better off if they
I don't know.
If they accepted Hitler's offer of non-aggression pact, something like that. Anyway, it's like
Jeez.
you know, there's too many of those crackpots and loons in there anyway.
Yeah, but the problem is, Reece, we've also got that in the Green Party. I mean, that councillor from the Green Party who spouted Allah Akbar. I mean, what is going on? I mean, the Green Party of all things. I mean, where's the selection process for that?
They tend to be the sort of party of peace and nuclear disarmament and things like that. So I think that's the problem with maybe a smaller party, is they don't have that mechanism in the background when it comes to vetting candidates and
sanity check. Yeah,
and they all get it wrong sometimes. Every party will have someone who does.
It's about getting as many. We do want diverse voices and diverse views.
Of course we do.
And that's really important.
We just want nutters.
On that question, sorry, Monty.
Go on, right.
Obviously, we're talking about hung parliament. What are the thoughts regarding actually, although we know it's quite high that we will see a change in parliament, the collaboration after that? Because that's what's been talked about a lot, because there's so much that needs fixing. Do we think that there will be a change in parliament, but a collaboration between the current and the new? Because that's come up quite a few times lately over the last 3 months.
Yeah,
I think that the Conservatives after this election could find themselves in an existential crisis, which might see them split. I don't think it'll be very, very interesting. You might well see the Conservatives split and the right wing and reform come together, whereas the centre ground could potentially do something with Labour or even the Lib Dems. I don't know. I think if Labour have a big majority, as the polls predict, I think it'll be closer than the polls predict. But if they do have a massive majority, then it'll just be, they'll just let the other parties fight it out between them.
Yeah, I mean, to answer Reece's point, I think that we're going to see votes going across a broad range of the parties. I don't think it's going to be as easy, as cut and dry as everyone's believing. I think there's going to be a big uptake in certain areas for some part, which is good. I think the variety is going to help us. We've had 14 years. Prior to that, we had the Labour situation where they were acting like Tories. So we've had a long period of time where no one's actually been out there. I think we could do with some. Actually, a hung parliament wouldn't hurt, as far as I'm concerned. I think we need to reshape this system, and we do need to get a new voting system as well, don't we? Because it's just being ping pong, isn't it? We're just playing ping pong.
I mean, first past the post is ridiculous anyway, because we were saying before we came on there that how many people are just going to vote for whoever's most likely to beat the Tories, and it's not necessarily what they believe in, and you wonder why people turn off from politics is because the person they vote for, if they truly wanted to vote for someone they believe in, probably is not going to win the election.
It's very difficult, yeah. I mean,
but then Labour will not change that if they
PR is very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I voted for it last time.
Exactly.
We had a kind of vote. I voted for it. Did you vote for it, Monty, last time it came up?
What was that?
It wasn't a full PR.
Was it alternative? It was the one where you ranked in order. I think that we voted for last time, and it didn't get in. But the problem was what we've got just preserves this status quo where
it does.
Reality is parties win elections from
it
the
has,
centre.
It has generally worked for a long time. The problem with PR is, and I used to be a big advocate of it, I'm not so sure now. The problem is, as you get more right-wing parties or more left-wing parties, that as we've seen in some other countries, sometimes the balance of power is held by the far right or the far left, and that becomes very difficult. But I'm sure there's a way of changing it so that everyone feels that they can vote for who they want to, rather than tactical voting. Because I think
I've had a number of. I'm speaking to the clients and people, obviously, generally in the last few weeks, saying, "Well, what's your voting strategy?" And the voting strategy for a lot of them was, "I'm not going to bother." because I'm not interested anymore. And I'm like, well, that's the whole reason. If you're not interested, you need to make a change. I said, just write, I hate you all across your paper. I said, then you're actually going to be a statistic of spoiled ballot. The problem is people not voting means, oh, I'm really happy with everything. Well, no, you're not really happy with everything. You really hate them, but you're not saying the right thing. Like, I hate you all. Go in and write, I hate you all on the paper. Simple.
Gary, in the last 2 elections, they've actually the public's asked for none of the above as a selection, because the amount of damaged votes that don't get counted is insane from some of the stats that have come out. So actually, why don't we have it from a public confidence, the ability to say, we don't agree with any of these, we don't want any of these, because like you say, people are either not going to vote or they're voting for the better of the two evils in their minds.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just wish I vote campaign defence. He talks the most sense. Something like that, where he said he'd make all Thames Water executives go for a swim in the river. Fantastic. I could get behind that political thing.
Who is that? Sorry.
Count Binface, the guy who,
right.
Whenever you see election news from all around the world, it's normally the prime minister of the time, and they're showing them winning, and you've got a guy dressed as an intergalactic emperor type.
I love Count Binface. I think he's back in this election, isn't he?
He is. He's running against Rishi. So that would be entertaining. Good. But it's really frustrating, maybe not being able to vote for who you want to. Because we were talking before we came on around Ed Davey, and if anyone hasn't watched it, we want MPs with real life experience, and he spoke very compellingly and from the heart about being a young carer for his mum.
Yeah, carer.
And that was, it was amazing seeing a politician who appears very real, but I wouldn't be able to vote for him around here because it would be a wasted vote, and that's slightly frustrating if that makes sense. The thing which will be interesting if Labour do get a huge majority is they're obviously going to make some promises which they should hopefully keep. You'd like to think, although this is politics. What are they going to do after they've done that with their majority? Are they going to do some more of the things which might appeal to more traditional Labour values? What are they going to do around taxation? Because this is a huge thing. How many of the UK's problems are from the fact that inequality's got so much worse in the last however many decades, and people are feeling squeezed in the middle because they can't afford the things that they might have used to be able to do. But then at the same time, you look at the super wealthy and they're doing better and better than ever. Everyone else is doing worse. Are they going to go after those guys? I saw a stat the other day that wealth of billionaires in the UK has gone up 1,000% since 1990.
Yep.
I think they will try and change. They'll try and change tax loopholes, etc. But yeah, they've set their stall out as to what they want to do. Yeah, it's a bit of an unknown as what they actually do, but what we do know is that whoever gets in, their manifesto pledges, lots of them seem to disappear. Just last point on this. I like this. I was going to mention this. Thank you, Simon. The Australian approach appeals to me. Everyone has to vote.
Yeah, exactly.
Spoiled votes count as a vote. And this is, I totally agree with this. The whole country gets a holiday for the day to enable them to vote, and they make it really easy for them to vote. So I think you can vote online, you can do this, etc. I think you can even do it on the telephone. And that seems like a much better way to me. Why they do it on a working day, where it's hard to get into the polling stations sometimes. It seems that this country they're making it harder and harder to vote, whereas other countries are making it easier. I want to move on though. So looking at specifically housing from the two parties. So Labour have announced their freedom to buy idea, which is a permanent guarantee to help lenders offer more high loan to value products for first time buyers. They've also promised to bring back housing targets and make changes to planning. Whereas the Conservatives, again, seem to be just looking at the demand side with the permanent stamp duty change for first-time buyers up to 425, because that's due to end, I think it's March or May next year in theory, and the return of Help to Buy. Yay. So and the Tories, will they ever actually build enough homes? Because they have had 14 years to do so, and they sort of haven't, and so much so they even scrapped the target. So Labour, Conservatives, that sort of seems to be the gist of what they're looking at. Rachel, what do you think?
I think the big thing that we've talked about most is the lack of housing. Until we can get actually building more housing, there's going to be this continuous problem. So it's great if they do things like the stamp duty, they give help to lenders and so on. But we've already seen products are, I think from Money Facts that came out this week, are 16-year high, and the increase on higher loan to values is already going up. But we don't have enough housing. And that is going to be continuously a problem in the UK. If we don't get the housing right, we have to be able to build more housing and more affordable housing.
So Rishi Sunak has admitted that home ownership has become more difficult under a Conservative government. It has got harder, and I want to make sure it gets easier, he said.
Yeah, I've got that written down here, funny enough, as an amazing quote.
Yeah, go on.
That's another one. That's another suicide campaign. Why would you sort of highlight that? Owning a home under Conservatives has been more difficult. And it's like, well, you do know there's an election coming up, don't you? I mean, it's just another. I mean, he's in defence mode, and that's his defence. I mean, that was today, apparently, wasn't it?
Yeah.
God, it was. It's almost like they don't give a toss about young people getting on the property ladder, because not only has it got harder to buy a house, you're also doing some national service, which just absolutely bananas. But I think, like Rachel said, that everything is tinkering around the edges if we don't build enough houses, and there's challenges with that. Huge skill shortages in people to actually build the houses. Guess what? I mean, we mentioned Brexit earlier. How many of the brickies went back to Poland, a country which is just about to overtake Britain for GDP per person at some point in the next few years?
But that's very war-based, Reece, that figure.
Sorry?
It's very war-based, that figure.
Yeah. Well, but the point is that these people have gone back, and we talk about the huge skill shortage. That's the elephant in the room. Is a lot of people did go back to where in Europe they came from, but those were people that our economy needed. But we need to build enough houses. We also need a housing minister that stays in post for more than a year. Is it 16 housing ministers we've had since 2010?
Don't Bruce.
Yeah,
it's
embarrassing.
There's no long-term plan whatsoever. But then I'm sure people get into politics because they want to build a legacy or something like that. Well, if you were a politician who wanted to build, yes, exactly. But if you were in it for the right reasons and you wanted to build a legacy, something like that of saying, I was the person who stuck with it for 10 years because I think there's going to be a huge majority, and I think we might have a bit of continuous government for a while. You could really make a name for yourself if you were the politician that was behind.
Exactly. If you were in it for real, if you were in it for real.
Because it does seem to be like more of a leg up job, and that's the thing. There should be a minimum requirement of time spent in the housing minister role, and it needs to be substantial time.
Should be for the whole parliament, in my view.
I think it should be anchored. I think it should be anchored. I think it should be anchored down, and you get that job, and that's it. And if they cock it up, they have to that way they have to think who they're putting in post. I mean, same with Treasury. I mean, the really important posts should be anchored. That's it. Right, let's do that then.
And someone with experience in the industry.
And understand.
I get the impression that Labour will do something like that. Yeah. Having actually sat down with. We've done a lot of housing mismanagement, and they will only focus on one area of the market. So one of the ones we sat in at one point was just regarding first-time buyers, and having a conversation regarding how they've got to look at the whole market, look at landlords, look at home movers,
look at first-time buyers as one, but also the ability to buy properties, completely blew their heads because they only wanted to focus on one point, and that's the problem. They knew they're going to be there for 6 more months maximum. There was no real actual interest about making change. If we could have someone from the industry doing it, it'd be fantastic. But they've got to understand it, if nothing else, and they've got to understand all areas of it, because it's not just one cog that moves. Everything's got to move together, and if one bit isn't being looked at, the rest falls apart.
Well, the difficulty of it is we've got a target for housing, and in 14 years they built 1 million houses. I mean, don't expect me to clap; it's pathetic. But they're not actually building the houses. The government's not building anything. The government's relying on their cartel of builders to control the market. Well, I'm sorry, that isn't the way to get what you need. If you want to dictate a statistic like housing, a really important statistic like housing, you do it yourself. You get on with it. You know, you roll your sleeves up and you get the houses built. You don't rely on the cartel that you've been relying on for 14 years. You know, it's an abuse of power. Controversial.
Yeah. They've said that they will build 1 million homes in the next.
Are they going to build them? Are they going to pass it to the cartel?
Labour have promised. Well, that's why
it's interesting as well, though, if you look who the big builders donate a lot of money to, from a political party point of view, and fair play. I'm not here as a Lib Dem spokesperson, but they were the only party that I can think of that had actually said we're going to cap political donations. Because the moment you've got a big business interest or someone who says, I can give you a couple of million quid, they're going to have an undue influence on your party's policy, aren't they, at the end of the day? And what they come up with is going to be right for them, not necessarily right for the nation. And it's sad that that money and that outside influence has such a big impact on what our political parties say. I mean, I'd be all for that. What UK voter would whinge about capping political party donations at £1,000, £10,000 or £1,000 or something like that? Every person in the UK, other than someone who is going to donate that much money to something, is going to think that's absolutely great. And I would say, this is my controversial statement of the day. If you've got a couple of million quid to give away to someone, the fact that you would donate it to the Conservative Party or someone like that, rather than a local charity or something like that does a lot of good for people. So if you're a huge political party donor, I think you might want to look at your moral compass, unless you are giving an equal amount to a charity as well. But it's a weird one. I did go to a charity auction recently, and they were auctioning away a bottle of whiskey that was signed by Rishi Sunak, and no one bought it, which was quite
well, it's probably poisoned. Poison. It's donated to him. It was poisoned, probably.
Possibly.
Exactly. So of those, do we think that having when we sat down with Labour and really tried to press the point on, actually you need the first time buyers, you need a healthy private rental sector, and you need social housing, and all those three things need to work in conjunction with each other, which they seem to understand, but whether it filters through or not into policy, we don't know. But do you think either of them will build enough homes? I mean, Labour has said that they're going to change planning as well, which is one of the key things that has to happen.
Yeah.
And they'll focus on affordable and social homes. And I quite like some of the ideas they've got there. And some of the builders actually seem to have embraced Labour, and obviously business has as well. So it does seem that there's potential for real change.
I think they've got a huge opportunity, because as much as I think the likes of Reform and those guys come at the debate around immigration from completely the wrong direction, and they use it in a very hateful way, we are getting people come over, and we've got huge skill shortages. So why are we not actually training these people to be, like I say, brickies, tradespeople, stuff that we actually need? and it's all very well saying we've got a house building target. There's not the people to do it or the supplies to ramp it up that quickly. So you need huge change, and unemployment, like we said, unemployment numbers have snuck up, but people might not necessarily have the skills for the jobs that are out there. Well, why are we not doing something? About that? And saying this as well as someone who has probably got a Desmond in sociology from Cardiff University many years ago, which I've never used for anything ever. We might need to have a real conversation around university and stuff like that, because I think there's this whole perception in society that you're a failure if you've not been to university. You're somehow less successful if you went down the apprenticeship route or something like that.
Well, we can blame Labour for that, and Tories carried it on. I mean, they just made it a you must go. I mean, parents say to me, I've got a daughter who's just doing her GCSEs. Parents say to me, "Oh, yeah, what university you've got planned for her?" And I'm like, "I haven't got a university planned for her. I've got her having a job. I wanted to have a career. I mean, she's going to go into television, so that's fine. We're in a very fortunate position. We're close to Elstree, where all the studios are, so that's good. But I think, everyone going to university, it just teaches you how to take drugs and get drunk. It doesn't actually teach you how to run your life. Well, sorry, but I know a lot of people.
That is pretty much what it was like.
We need to get back to teaching people skills. We have a skill shortage, and we need to teach people how to do those jobs. And we've got, just
you look at what a brickie is earning by the age of 30 versus what someone who's just learned how to drink loads of beer at uni, like I.
Good, Rachel.
Yeah, go on.
It's there's a huge difference, especially around here. You look at, we've always dealt mainly with first-time buyers. We're in and around Derby, so we have a lot of people who work for Rolls-Royce, JCB, those guys, and you get these guys coming in as an apprentice when they're maybe 21, 23, and they think about buying the first house. When those guys are coming back to remortgage after they finish their apprenticeship, those guys are earning really, really well. They're doing a very fulfilling job, and they've got a qualification they can take with them anywhere in the world. That apprenticeship route is fantastic, and they're not qualifying with God knows what the debt is that you leave university with now. It's scary, and I think we need to have a real conversation around actually how do we make it so our workforce has the skills that are actually needed for what is probably a bit of a rebuild job, it feels like, with our society at the moment, with making sure that we can deal with what's actually going on in the 21st century, not 20th.
Rachel?
I'm immensely proud that I never went to university, and I voice that very often because I think it's really important we do, because there is a stigma that you aren't going to be successful if you've got university behind you. The government has definitely directed that way, and the debt, like we all work in mortgages, the first thing we see every single time is student loans, and they are expensive. It's getting more and more expensive. So actually you've got more families saying, can we afford to send our children to university now? Then it's going backwards back to the 90s era, or they're going to be laden with debt. And it's not just 10, 15,000 pounds of the debt. It's huge numbers. So I think we have to actually voice more as humans regarding those that didn't go to university and where we've got to. But it's also, when we're talking about, and just going back to the workers and the people now in the skill set, we've also got to look at, since we left Europe and so on, the cost of materials has increased by nearly triple. So not only do we not have the skill set people, the materials are costing so much more, and we're asking them to build affordable housing. How does this actually ever work?
Well, I think Brexit was the suppliers of building materials, and I think the UK is being played, to be honest, by those sectors now, because they're playing. To be fair,
we also had the Ukraine. Ukraine war.
Yeah, I mean,
and what was amazing is how many materials and stuff like that actually went via that route.
Yeah, I mean, but the COVID situation and everything else, it killed off the suppliers of that stuff, and they're now just playing catch up, and we are being ripped off. If there was an inquiry, they would prove it being ripped off on building materials. I know a lot about that, don't I, Monty? So I don't see that as a Brexit situation. I see it as a COVID situation. Really. Feel like a bit of
one other piece of news that I was interested in is a report from the Homeowners Alliance, which was out. They used some figures from MFS Group where they said that around 37% of buyers are being gazumped, a rise of 6% from 2 years ago. 59% of buyers who were gazumped lost money, and the average cost of a property falling through came to £2,400. Is this something you think parties should look at, and the actual housing system itself? We've always compared ourselves to the system in Scotland. Should a new government look at maybe making it a change? Can we make gazumping illegal in some way?
What person who's bought a house in England and Wales would say that was the best way to buy and sell a house? I don't think anyone. And it's one of those ones where who in their right mind would vote against making the home buying process better and fit for the modern day? It's a solid vote winner to make it so people don't lose out on money. Make it quicker as well. I say this as someone who co-founded a conveyancing brokerage, best legal services provider in the UK last week.
Sweet.
We think we're great because we are quicker than the UK average. It's still bloody slow because we're reliant on too many bits of paper being sent around and processes which are really archaic and the beauty of the Scottish model, which we hold up. I mean, we're all brokers based in England. I always just love it if a customer came in who was buying in Scotland, because the difference is when they bring the house to the market, they get everything ready before it even comes to the market. So you're buying it with your eyes open, and it goes through a lot quicker. And you're exchanging contracts right at the start, in essence, really. So you don't have this fall through rate and people trying to do stupid stuff as well, with trying to stitch you up on price at the last minute and someone else coming in and offering more money. I just don't see why anyone wouldn't want it to be better. And it doesn't seem like it's something which would, if you're a politician, you should all be about making people's lives a bit better. And that'd be something which make people's lives a little bit better and wouldn't cost very much money to do. So why don't we do it?
And we've seen
they'll earn more from stamp duty and the stuff which comes with buying. Houses. Couldn't even make money.
Right. We've seen the likes of, Coadjute and all the stuff Maria Harris is doing in terms of trying to get that process a lot slicker and quicker with tech. What are your thoughts?
Considering the era we're in, it feels like it's got slower and harder. And that's the kind of area where we're all looking at Maria Harris is really pioneering it. We do need to make it better. Clients walk into it, they know it's going to be stressful, but it's getting longer and harder. I have my Geddes gives me away. It's a Scottish surname, so I have worked in Scotland broking as well. I really liked it there because every buyer that put an offer in knew exactly what they're walking into from a legal stance, a survey stance. There was taking away any need to, but also what was different was how the properties are priced up there. So at the moment, you get 3 estate agencies out, you could have anything between a 25% price change from first estate agent to the third one. How is that possible? How do vendors even know how to price their properties when that's anything between 50,000 and 200,000 at the top end? So this is why you do find that you're having a lot of the gazumping and gazundering and so on happening, is because people are walking in going, well, is it priced by the top agent or the valuer's agent? And so we do need a massive reform on that, but we do need to look at all areas of it, from putting an application to a lender, the underwriting process, how we can automate a lot of that, open banking. The legal side of it is a big thing. And the surveying side, we've had a lot of surveyors since COVID retire. So that market has massively shrunk. So if you're trying to get a surveyor to physically go to see a property, you're going to have about a 40% increase in weight just the surveyor route. All these things have been affected for many different reasons. COVID was a big part of it. We need to look at the whole of it, because actually we've got this really prime position in front of us to make some really big changes that will make the client's journey a lot better, but also make it possible for brokers to do their jobs and enjoy their jobs again and do things without all the stresses that are thrown at them daily.
Yeah, I agree. we've done 50 minutes. So, last, here you go. Right, Ryan's got a good question. Does the panel and you feel there are positives apart from the Tories losing power to look forward to? Rachel.
Absolutely. You know something, we are probably the most robust industry out there. We get thrown curveballs left, right, and centre. With every single curveball, though, there is opportunities. So, yes, we're going to see some more changes happen. I think the last 3-4 years have been probably the most volatile for us, but we've all come out the other end of it. We've all been successful. So there's lots of positives from it. And the difference is we're all speaking more as a community. 2-3 years ago, we weren't doing things like this even. We are working more, collaborating as a community to make things better. And we are going to see some real big changes happen over the next 6-12 months in our industry that will be massively positive for everyone.
Very good. Love that. Reese?
I would say a plan would be very nice. Just a modicum of a plan would be very nice. Because saying you've got a plan many times
positive. Let's be positive.
Well, if you keep saying you've got a plan enough, people might think you've actually got a plan, but I'm not entirely convinced that there is a plan. I think it's very difficult. We've had so much instability. You're always going to get this when you have a different prime minister every couple of years or every month. If you look at Liz Truss, I think, and the lettuce, and I think just having some sort of stability and having the same core group of people, whoever it is, to actually do something long term, because everything for the last few years has just been real short-term stuff just to deal with the next crisis. I think just having something, because nothing moves fast in housing, and that's what we really care about, I guess, in our industry. Just having some sort of long-term vision of where we want to get to will be fantastic, and just know the direction that we're moving in, because we don't know at the moment.
Gary?
I know Dee Reamer's not allowed Labour to use their song "Things Can Only Get Better," but literally things. I mean, you could put Mr. Bean in charge of this country, seriously, from July the 8th, and he would make a better job than this bunch of morons for the last 4. And I'm a Tory. Hey, I cut up my blue card. I cut it up. So, I mean, things can only get better. I'm very strongly behind Rachel on that. You know, we've got lots of initiatives, lots of things that can happen. The Bank of England need to wise up, start listening to the people. So things will get better. We just need to get rid of this bunch of posh idiots.
On that, before, it is just quite interesting. So the Conservatives are announcing their manifesto today at Silverstone. So all the gags are ready. The Conservatives are stalled in the pits. It's a car crash, etc., etc. If you're going to choose a venue, you don't choose that. But Ryan, for me, I agree that there are always positives to look out for. Potentially a new era with a new government, some different thinking, some new thinking, people who so far have shown that they're willing to engage with us at the grassroots is very, very promising. So, and as Rachel said, we're a hardy bunch. Exactly. We will adapt. We will get through. So don't panic. Anyway, we are out of time. So thank you to our guests. Thank you, Reese. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Gary. We have been shouting out a Star Broker of the Week at the end of each webinar. So please tag MPowered on socials when you've seen a broker go above and beyond. And you can also nominate Star Broker on the MPowered website. This week's shout out is Laurel Ellis from Mortgage First. Hello, Laurel. Laurel consistently delivers exceptional service to her clients, and last weekend she demonstrated her dedication and community spirit by running the Hyde Park 10K, raising over £700 for the Florence Nightingale Hospice. Well done, Laurel.
Well done.
Well done.
Well done. Commendable. I can't run a bath these days, let alone run 10K. We are bi-weekly, so nothing next week, but we'll be back the week after. Remember, you can listen to all of these on Spotify, so you can catch up with all the podcasts and listen to Gary's phone ringing at the beginning again. If you have enjoyed this, I've been Andrew Montlake. If you haven't, I have been Tory Chairman Richard Holden. Until next time, have a great